Two true elimination games this Friday night as both Western and Eastern Conference play-in rounds conclude with the winner getting the 8th seed, the loser going home. It's do or die, and I'm going to break down both games for you on Friday night between the Bulls and Heat and also the Kings and Pelicans, and we've got some big injury information in both games as well. I'm also going to let you know the most public play of the two games. Everything for you free here in just a moment. Hi, this is Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, back here on WagerTalk TV, and the playoffs technically begin on Saturday, but we have a basic playoff situation because the play-in round concludes tonight on Friday, April the 19th, and it's a win and get in. You get the 8th seed, lose, and you go home and you start golfing a couple months sooner than the rest of your colleagues that will be playing in the NBA postseason. And we have huge injuries in both games. Let's start with the 7 o'clock Eastern game, Chicago at Miami. Jimmy Butler is out. Initially, we saw the Heat as a 2.5 point favorite. It's now 1.5. We've seen a big drop on the total, 209.5 now down to 206. Some of the sharper books are even starting to hit 205. Hard to disagree with that move. Jimmy Butler is the most important player on the Miami Heat, but they have learned to play without him over the years. But he will be a big loss. Was having a nice game against the Sixers, and don't forget, Philly had a double-digit deficit. It came from behind to win that game. Miami really blew it on Wednesday night, and they would have had a chance to get the 7th seed and avoid the Celtics until the conference finals. Now, if they get in as the 8th seed, they'll have to play Boston right away. So it's going to be a very tough road for the Miami Heat to make a repeat run to the NBA Finals like they did just a year ago from the play-in round, especially with Jimmy Butler, who's going to get an MRI. Looks like he could be out extended time even if they do qualify for that 8th seed. How have the Heat been with and without Butler this year? Well, I like to look at points per possession, per 100 possessions, based on a 48-minute basis, and that's a full game basis. They're about 7.5 points weaker for a 48-minute span. So obviously he's a critical player, and the line adjustment's been well worth it. But what jumps out to you is defensively, the Heat are about the same points for, points against. Huge drop off, almost a 7% drop off in scoring points wise without him, and the effective field goal percentage drops almost 3 percentage points. So it is a blow for Miami, and it does favor the under, especially since Miami is one of the slowest paced teams in the league, and the Chicago Bulls like to play that way as well. The problem is that the odds makers have taken away any value with the under. In fact, I'll do some math for you here quickly. NBA average score this year is about 228.5 points based on the schedule teams have played. Chicago's average about 226 a game, so a couple points below average. The Heat are right about 218.5, so they're about 10 points below average. So that would take you to about 216, 215. Yes, playoff games are lower scored, especially elimination like game sevens, and this is an elimination game. So we bump it a several more points, get it down to 212, 211. And then Jimmy Butler's worth probably several points as well, so say 208, 207. So this total is pretty much where it should be. It does seem low, but it's low for a reason. If I had to play this game, I'd still lean the under 206. Not much line value left, but the under is the only way to play it. Is the Heat will be a weaker offensive team, and both teams should be bringing their defensive intensity. And don't forget, Chicago just played a very weak Atlanta Hawks defense. Kobe White, who's having a breakout season at point guard from UNC after being drafted first round in 2019, had a career high 42 points, but that was against a terrible Hawk defense that allowed 57% shooting. Chicago has gone over 5 straight games to finish the regular season, and now that play-in game last Wednesday, 5 straight overs, and the Miami Heat are 10-1 over their last 11. So the odds makers have been bumping totals a bit too low for Heat games, and they did squeak over with Philly. That game was around 208. It landed 209. So once again, I lean under based on the matchup, but the odds makers have been taking all that value out, and Miami's actually 10-1 to the over their last 11 games. All right, let's look at the late game now at 9:30 Eastern on Friday night. The Western Conference play-in for number 8 seed Sacramento at New Orleans, and a huge injury here as well for the home team, who would have been favored, but now they're a dog, and that's New Orleans. Zion Williamson is out. He, of course, had a monster game against the Lakers on Tuesday. Pelicans were tied up. Really had a chance to win that game. 95 all, I believe. It was 3.5 minutes to go. Zion had 40 points, and then he takes himself out of the game with a leg injury. There's been a lot of controversy. This is a guy that's missed some games over the years. He's obviously had injury problems, but the fact that he is out now for this game tells me he probably was hurt. By the way, the Pelicans are 7-5 straight up this year without Zion in the lineup, so they have been able to compete. But once again, like the Jimmy Butler numbers, I look at points per possession based on a 48-minute basis, and he is a critical player. They're about 6 points weaker per 100 possessions without him. But what's interesting here is unlike Jimmy Butler, where it shows all on the offensive side, Zion's numbers have shown defensively. In fact, the Pelicans have scored slightly more points per 100 possessions with him off the court this year, which is crazy. But they've been much better defensively, almost 4 points better per 100 possessions without him. So a little counterintuitive here. Maybe Zion's not as important as people think. In fact, if you look overall at the effective field goal percentage, it's the same with him on or off the court, but the defensive number's a couple points better. So you could make an argument. Now, I'm not going to make this argument because I think Zion's a very important player. He put up 40 for him the other night in their near win. But they are a better defensive team without him, and they have been able to pick up the scoring from other pieces. Now, when Ingram was out, it was a major blow, but they're working him back into the lineup, and he's really going to be the key, I think, is how well, if he can last the whole game or even play at all, with his injuries coming and going as well. But the line has gone from New Orleans 1.5 to now a plus 1.5 dog. They went from a favorite to a dog, so it could be a little bit of an overreaction here, and maybe we do get some value with the Pelicans. Keep in mind, they had the sixth best point differential in the league this year out of all the teams, yet they only finished seventh in their own conference. So this is an underrated team. They've been better on the road than at home. If this game was at Sacramento, we'd be getting several more points, and there probably would be more value. I will point out, though, some of my public indicators I look at looks like Sacramento could be a pretty public play in this game. So if you are looking to fade the public on either game Friday, the Kings do look like the most public side. And once again, we do get some adjusted line value now with New Orleans. Question is, can they get it done without Zion, who was having a monster game until 3.5 minutes to go against the Lakers? As far as the total in this game, big drop on this as well, 218.5 down to 212. And that's probably pretty justified because, once again, you see on the surface a big point guard like Zion is out. But as I mentioned, the defense has been better for New Orleans without Zion this year. This is a team that had gone over three straight, and then they stayed under with just a 216 total. That total closed around 225 in that Laker game. Of course, we saw both games last Tuesday, both the Kings game and the Pelican games, get a lot of sharp money on the under, moving several points low, and they both still stayed under. In fact, the Sacramento game against Golden State's total just 212. Both games stayed about 10 points under their total, so that's another reason odds makers had to bump this down. Elimination games are usually lower scoring, and Sacramento has quietly become an under machine. That was their third straight under that game against Golden State. They have now gone under 17 of their last 21 games. That's right, the Kings are on a 17-4 under run. So until we see otherwise, that's the only way to play it. But we have lost a lot of line value with this total dropping from 218.5 down to 212. Once again, both games, the under is the play from a setup-wise perspective, from a matchup and fundamental perspective. But once again, the odds makers have done a good job bumping both the Miami and New Orleans totals pretty low. In fact, doing some raw math here on this one, like I did for you in the other game, New Orleans games this season have averaged 225.5 points. It's about 3 points below average. The Kings, though, 231.5. That's about 3 points above average. So using regular season games, that would be a 228 total. We obviously bump it several baskets for being an elimination playoff game. That gets us to say 225, 224. And then if Zion's offense isn't there, maybe bump it a bit more. But once again, they've been better defensively without him. So at most, probably the low 220 range, high 219, 218. So, and that's where it opened. Now it's down to 212. So although the Kings have gone under 17 of 21, this total looks a little bit lower than it probably should be, although the matchup probably screams defensive battle. Hey, let me know your thoughts on both of these games. Tricky handicaps, first of all, with star players out for both home teams. And then these playing games in general have been pretty random. Sacramento and Golden State. Sacramento had a 24-point edge from three-point range, and they won by 24. That was the difference in that game. They were hitting the three-point shots. Golden State was not. In fact, Klay Thompson had no points in over 31 minutes. That very well might have been the end of the Golden State dynasty. Keep in mind, they won the championship, their seventh, just 2 years ago. Got to figure it might be over for them not qualifying this year. And Klay Thompson definitely looked like he might be at the end of his career with no points. If you thought one team was going to have a 24-point edge from three, very well would have thought it was the Warriors in that game, but it was Sacramento. So these are like NCAA tournament games. They're very random. They're one-and-done scenarios. Three-point shooting will make a difference as far as looking at the three-point numbers. Sacramento actually has the disadvantage against New Orleans. New Orleans hits over 38% of their shots from three, and the Kings have a much weaker three-point defense. So if three-point shooting becomes the difference, I think New Orleans does have that edge. Another reason I would lean that way in that game. Between Miami and Chicago, both teams mediocre. Miami slightly better three-point shooting and slightly better three-point defense. So both home teams do have the three-point shooting edge offensively and defensively. We'll see if that comes into play on Friday night. If you're finding these playoff previews useful, let me know and I will continue to do them. The real playoffs start on Saturday, 4 games Saturday, 4 games Sunday. So be sure to hit subscribe and click the bell as well so you know when these previews go up each and every day for the next 2 months during the postseason. Let me know in the comments below if you're finding them useful and I will keep them coming. Let me know what other aspects you'd like to look at. We'll start diving into some player props when the matchups become less available. When we have 8 games this week, and I'm going to give a deep dive into the sides and totals. But when we start to narrow it down in the coming months, player props will play a bigger role. If you like some player props, please leave them in the comments below as well. With some brief analysis is always appreciated. Let's learn and earn and win together here on Wager Talk TV. Thumbs up, like, and don't forget my personal best bets for basketball and baseball every day are available on WagerTalk.com, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, and I am ranked number one in the history of Wager Talk in units won for the NBA, and I'm ranked number one again this year, this season in the NBA sides and totals combined, number one all time in this season as well. Last year, the NBA was 103 and 63 for me, including 29 and 17, 63% of the NBA playoffs. I love the NBA postseason. I honestly believe it's probably the most consistent moneymaker for me during my 30-year career. Angles that worked in the 90s when I started continue to work. The modified zigzag, we'll talk more about that when we get the Saturday and Sunday matchups, especially next week when we get games 2 and games 3 starting to roll. So be sure to subscribe, hit the bell as well, and check out a nice offer this week. And if you'd like to get on board, now is an excellent time to try out my NBA playoff package with the playoffs starting Saturday. By the way, I do have a strong Saturday playoff best bet for game 1 posted right now. Lock in the best line there. Get that game 1 best bet for Saturday. It's available right now, along with my daily baseball best bets for just less than $10 a day. Here's how it works. A 7-day is $99, but if you sign up through this weekend, you get additional 3 days, an additional 3-day $69 package for free. So that's right. You're not paying $168 for 10 days like you normally would. You're paying just $99. You're getting a 7-day package. You get another 3 for free. It is on my page right now. No promo code needed. It's right below the free play. I post a free play every day. So, of course, you should be checking out the free plays. And when you're there, you'll see the daily packages along with that buy 7, get 3 free, the 10-day special for this weekend only. Every NBA basketball, every MLB playoff, NBA playoffs, baseball daily plays for the next 10 days and nights for just $99. That's just 9.9 a day. You do the math. That was simple at wagertalk.com. Free plays, promo package, everything's there right now. Check it out. Steve Merril, wagertalk.com. Get there quicker, including that Saturday NBA best bet, which is ready right now with shortcut WT.buzz/SM. Follow me on Twitter and X as well at Steve Merril, 2 R's, 1 L at Steve Merril on Twitter and X. Also post free plays throughout the week on Instagram. Be sure to follow me on IG along with Wager Talk. And stay tuned here to Wager Talk TV for more great baseball and basketball preview videos coming up next.